Three women vanished without a trace. A quiet home was left undisturbed. A shattered porch light, a missing voicemail, a green van that came and went in the night. In the days that followed, Springfield became a town of whispers. Neighbors locked their doors. Families watched the news with a sense of quiet dread. But for the families of Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt, the whispers were only the beginning. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and darkness settled over a town that was once quiet but was now haunted. Because time does not heal a mystery, it only deepens it. This is the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin. Tonight we continue our two-part investigation into one of America's most disturbing unsolved mysteries, the disappearance of the Springfield Three. When three women vanish without a trace, the world fills with silence and then is consumed by theories. In Springfield, the theories began almost immediately. Of all the theories, one gained almost mythical status: the green van. Witnesses claimed to have seen a green Dodge van near the home the night of the disappearance. Some swore they saw a man speaking to a young woman. Others said the van was dirty with tinted windows. But despite the reports, the van was ultimately never found. Theories grew around the van. Was it an abductor's vehicle, a passing stranger who saw an opportunity, or just a false memory, a trick of panic and time? Psychologists call this memory contamination, the way the human mind can alter details in moments of panic. But for Springfield, the van became a ghost, a phantom symbol of the threat that could come during the night. In the absence of proof, the van really was more than a vehicle. It was an enigma, a reminder of something dark and unknown moving through a quiet town in the middle of the night. Then there was the legend of the hidden basement, a rumor that would grow like a vine, twisting into the story itself. Now, Springfield is a town of old houses. Some were built over root cellars and storm shelters, but Cheryl Levitt's home was a single-story ranch, a place where the floor should have been the bottom. Yet, whispers claim there was more: a trapdoor, a hidden room, a place where the women could have been taken and never found. Police searched. The new owners swore there was no basement, but for some reason this story refused to die. Even years later, strangers would knock on the door asking if the new owners had checked beneath the floors. But the theories didn't stop at the house or the van. As time passed, they grew darker and more desperate. Rumors spread of human trafficking, that the women had been taken by a ring passing through town. Others whispered of a cult, that three women matched a ritual pattern. One theory even suggested that Cheryl Levitt had crossed the wrong people in her work as a hairdresser. Perhaps a debt was unpaid or a grudge went unsettled. But the problem with theories is that they are easy to create and nearly impossible to prove. And for the families of the Springfield Three, theories lingered every day of their lives. In the world of unsolved crimes, suspects can become numerous and many people can become suspects. They can be figures who just kind of hover on the outside of the story. Or, in the case of the Springfield Three, they can be individuals who simply insert themselves into the case. For instance, the first suspect is Robert Craig Cox. He is a convicted kidnapper with a sinister reputation. Cox claimed he knew what happened to the women, that they were dead and buried somewhere in Springfield. But when pressed, he would say no more. Cox was a master of suggestion and manipulation, and he fed into the fear of the unknown answers around the three women. Was he taunting the families, or was he playing a game only he understood? Cox's criminal history is a dark shadow linked to the murder of a woman in Florida, arrested for robbery in Texas, and somehow he circled back to Springfield, where his parents still lived. The green van. Now, the van itself was never proven, but it represents a suspect, whoever owned that van. For some reason, the van wasn't just a theory, it was the face of an unknown assailant. Police followed dozens of tips. They searched DMV records, traced similar vehicles, questioned owners, but nothing. Some believe the van was an illusion, a false memory created by panic and fear, but others insisted it was real. And as long as it remained unfound, it and its owner remained a suspect. There was the mystery caller, a voice on the phone claiming the women were being held against their will. But before police could trace the call, it disconnected. Was it a cruel joke, a hoax, or was it a cry for help? Someone who knew more than they could say. And then, as is often the case, the fourth suspect is probably the darkest possibility. And it was that someone that the women knew had taken them. Could it have been a trusted friend, familiar face, someone who could walk in without a struggle? But with no evidence, every suspect is just a shadow, and the shadows of the Springfield Three are long. Months turned to years, but the families of Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt, for them, time was frozen. Springfield had moved on in some ways. There were new businesses popping up, new residents moving into town, children who were growing up and never had even heard of the Springfield Three. But for those who did remember, the sense of loss never left. Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, became the voice of resilience. She remained in Springfield, hosting events, keeping the memory of her daughter and the other women alive. We'll never stop looking. I'll never stop searching for Stacy. I know she's out there somewhere. For Janice, hope was more than just a feeling. It was a mission. She became an advocate for other families of missing persons, pushing for better communication between police departments and the families left behind. Cheryl Levitt's family took a quieter path. Her siblings and relatives chose not to speak publicly. For them, the pain was too personal and too raw. Her sister, Deborah Schwartz, would later reflect on the loss. We just want answers, just to know what happened. We can't move on without that. As the years passed, media coverage dwindled. The story that once gripped the nation faded, overshadowed by newer tragedies and sensational stories. But for Janice, Cheryl's family, and Susie's friends, the story was never over. They remained in Springfield, stuck in a cycle of waiting and wondering. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Janice began her own investigation. She kept a meticulous record of every tip that came her way, every phone call, every whispered rumor, every potential sighting. She compiled a binder of information, one that grew heavier as the years passed. She made phone calls, sent emails, tracked down anyone who claimed to know something, and sometimes people would just taunt her. False confessions, cruel jokes, misleading tips. Each one was a dagger to the heart, but she never stopped. After Cheryl Levitt's disappearance, her house on East Delmar Street was eventually sold. New families moved in, life continued. But for those who knew the story, that house always felt tainted, a place where something terrible had happened, and there were no answers. Some residents claimed to hear strange noises at night, perhaps echoes of a past that wouldn't stay buried. Others swore they felt uneasy in certain rooms, as if the walls themselves remembered. Every June 7th, friends, family, and supporters would gather at a local park to remember the women. Three empty chairs sit at the front of the gathering. Candles flicker, people share memories. Sometimes someone new will attend, drawn by curiosity or maybe even a sense of duty. But for those who've been there since the beginning, it's a ritual, a way of keeping the women alive. The disappearance of the Springfield Three changed that town. People locked their doors. Trust became harder to give. New parents raised their children with caution, always mindful of where they were and who they were with. And sometimes, on quiet nights, people still drive past 1717 East Delmar Street just to see it, just to remember what could have happened. Springfield still carries the weight of the mystery. Three women who should have been safe, in a home that should have been a refuge, and a family left to wonder why them. But time does not end grief, it only gives it room to grow. Next, we examine how the case grew cold and why some still believe the truth is out there, buried beneath years of rumor and innuendo. Decades have passed, new mysteries have emerged, new names, new faces. But in Springfield, Missouri, the disappearance of the Springfield Three remains a shadow that won't fade. By the mid 1990s, active leads had pretty much dried up. The case files were boxed and shelved. New detectives were assigned, but they brought no new answers. Theories were explored and then abandoned. Suspects were questioned, then released. Even that green van, a phantom that haunted the investigation, became a fading memory. What was once a breaking news story became a cautionary tale, a ghost story told to those who forgot to lock their doors. But in a dark storage room at the Springfield Police Department, the case file remained. Hundreds of pages of witness statements, maps, photos, and theories. A silent testimony to a case that refused to be solved. Among those files, a police sketch of the unknown man thought to be seen by the mysterious green van. Statements from neighbors who heard screaming that night but never reported it. The list of incoming calls to Cheryl's house, including the deleted voicemail. The floor plan of 1717 East Delmar Street. No basement, but a shadow of suspicion. For every answer the file seemed to hold, it held twice as many questions. For the families, the idea of a cold case was an insult. Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, refused to accept that term. They aren't a cold case. They're still missing. They're still out there somewhere. But time is cruel. Leads that were once warm grow colder, witnesses age, memories fade, and those who once carried the search begin to grow weary. Even as the official investigation slowed, the Springfield Three continued to haunt online communities, blogs, forums, Reddit threads, all debating, theorizing, and questioning. And, as often happens, the theories grew elaborate. That the women were abducted by a human trafficking ring. In 2025, not a far fetched theory, but in the early 1990s, it was unheard of. That they were buried beneath a parking garage, a theory dismissed, but also never disproven. That one of the women knew a secret and someone killed to keep it silent. Each theory brought a burst of new interest, but no new answers. Some mysteries become less frightening with time, fading, explained away, dismissed. But the Springfield Three is different because it happened in a place that should have been safe, in a quiet neighborhood, a familiar home on a beautiful summer night. It is a reminder that darkness can come quietly and without reason. Each year, The families still hold vigils. They still hand out flyers. They still take every call, answer every message, hoping for that one break, that one person who knows the truth. But for now, the Springfield Three remains a story without an ending, a mystery without an answer. Those three women, Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt, walked into a quiet and safe home one summer night, and then they disappeared. Was it a stranger? Was it someone they knew? A secret that someone was desperate to bury? Or was it something more? A darkness that slipped in without a sound? This is the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin, and tonight we have talked and walked through the shadows of a story without an ending. Because in Springfield, Missouri, three women vanished, and somewhere the truth still waits.